They thought they could hide it. They thought the world would never know. But the truth has exploded into the open like a fireball over Tehran. Mossad, the most feared intelligence agency on Earth, has been caught red-handed. Iran's president is dead, not by accident, not by natural causes, but by a precision strike so calculated, so cold-blooded, that it bears the unmistakable fingerprint of Israeli covert operations. And now, right now, as you watch this video, Tehran is preparing its response. Missiles are being fueled. Fighters are scrambling. Stay with me till the end, because what I'm about to reveal comes from leaked documents, intercepted communications, and intelligence sources that risked everything to expose this operation. Let me take you back to that night. Tehran was quiet, too quiet. The Iranian president, surrounded by his security detail, his convoy moving through the capital, had no idea that death was already locked onto his position. This wasn't a random attack. This was surgical. Mossad agents operating deep inside Iranian territory had spent months preparing for this moment. They had infiltrated the highest levels of Iran's government. They knew his route. They knew his schedule. They knew exactly when his guard would be down. And they struck with lethal precision. Witnesses reported hearing nothing, no explosion, no gunfire, just the sudden realization that something was terribly wrong. The president's vehicle came to a halt. His security team scrambled, but it was already over. The kill team was gone, vanished into the shadows of Tehran like ghosts, and left behind evidence, documents, proof that this was no internal coup, no rebel attack. This was Mossad, and Israel thought they had covered their tracks. They were wrong. The leak came from within. Someone somewhere in the labyrinth of Israeli intelligence couldn't live with the secret. Or perhaps it was Iranian counterintelligence finally connecting dots that had been scattered for months. Whatever the source, the documents that surfaced tell a story of breathtaking audacity. Operation names, code words, payment records to assets inside Iran. Satellite imagery showing Israeli reconnaissance drones hovering over Tehran in the weeks before the strike. Communication intercepts where Mossad handlers gave the final go order. It's all there. A paper trail that leads directly to Jerusalem. And the timing is everything. Iran was on the verge of a breakthrough. Nuclear negotiations that had been stalled for years were suddenly showing movement. Regional powers were talking about de-escalation. The Americans were quietly pushing for a deal. And then, bam, the president is dead. The hardliners take control. The moderates are silenced. And any hope of diplomacy dies with him. Coincidence? You tell me. Because from where I'm standing, this looks like a calculated move to ensure Iran remains isolated, angry, and dangerous. Exactly how certain powers want it. But here's where it gets even darker. The Iranian president wasn't just a target because of his position. He was targeted because he knew something that threatened to change the entire balance of power in the region. Sources suggest he had been in secret back-channel communications with Saudi officials. Not just any communications, discussions about a regional security pact that would have sidelined Israel entirely. A Middle East where Iran and its Arab neighbors solved their problems without American or Israeli involvement. The Zionist state's worst nightmare, a united Muslim world sitting at the same table, cutting deals that don't include them. That couldn't be allowed to happen. And now, it won't. The response from Tehran was immediate. Not the response on the ground that came later, but the response in the war rooms. The supreme leader, usually so measured, so calculating, was reportedly shaking with rage. This wasn't just the loss of a president. This was a declaration of war against the Iranian state itself. The Revolutionary Guard, already itching for confrontation, was given carte blanche to plan the retaliation. And they are planning something big, something that will make the world forget about October 7th, something that will etch this moment into history books for centuries. Intelligence sources, Western, Arab, and yes, even Israeli, are all saying the same thing. Iran is not going to launch a few rockets at empty military bases this time. They're not going to give warning. They're not going to pull punches. The target list includes Israeli government buildings in Jerusalem, military headquarters in Tel Aviv, and yes, Mossad facilities themselves. The very architects of this assassination are now marked for death. An eye for an eye, a life for a life. But Iran's leaders know they can't match Israel's military technology head to head. So they're thinking asymmetrically. They're thinking about Hezbollah's 150,000 rockets in Lebanon. They're thinking about the Houthis, who have already proven they can strike deep inside Israeli territory. They're thinking about sleeper cells activated, armed, and waiting for the green light in cities across Europe and even the Americas. The Iranian message is clear. You came for our head of state. We will come for your entire way of life. But wait. Before you pick a side, before you decide who the villain is in this story, let me show you the bigger picture. Because what happened in Tehran isn't happening in a vacuum. This is part of a war that's been raging in the shadows for decades. A war most people don't see because it doesn't make the evening news. Mossad has been operating inside Iran for years, assassinating nuclear scientists, sabotaging facilities, supporting separatist movements in Kurdish and Baloch regions. They've done it all. In Iran, they've been doing the same, arming Hamas, funding Hezbollah, building a ring of fire around Israel's borders. Both sides have blood on their hands. Both sides have crossed lines that can't be uncrossed. What makes this different is the brazenness, the public nature of it. Israel didn't just kill an Iranian official, they killed the president, the face of the nation, the symbol of Iranian sovereignty. It's the equivalent of Iran assassinating the Israeli prime minister in broad daylight on the streets of Tel Aviv. Could you imagine the response? The world would be holding its breath, waiting for the nuclear fireworks. Well, that's exactly where we are right now, except the world doesn't seem to understand what's coming. The media is treating this like just another Middle East crisis, another cycle of violence. But this isn't a cycle. This is an escalation ladder. And we're climbing rung by rung towards something unspeakable. I want you to think about the young Iranians who took to the streets after the president's death, not to mourn, though some did, but to celebrate. Yes, celebrate. Because to them, he represented everything wrong with their country, the repression, the economic collapse, the isolation. And now he's gone, killed by their government's worst enemy. The irony is staggering. The tragedy is deeper because those celebrations will turn to ashes when the retaliation begins, when Israel strikes back at Iran's strikes, when the region ignites. Those same young people will be conscripted. They'll be sent to fronts they never asked for. They'll die for a conflict that was manufactured in secret rooms by men who never face the consequences of their decisions. Let's talk about those men, the Mossad operatives who carried this out. Who are they? We don't know their names. We probably never will, but we know their type, highly trained. Fanatically loyal, willing to do anything for the state of Israel. They've been compared to James Bond in popular culture, suave, sophisticated, saving the world from evil. But the reality is much darker. These are assassins, killers who operate outside any law, who cross borders with fake passports, carry out murders, and disappear. No trial, no jury, just execution. Well, they got caught this time, and that changes everything. Because an exposed spy is a useless spy. A revealed operation is a failed operation. Israel's carefully cultivated aura of invincibility has cracks now, big ones. And their enemies are watching, learning, preparing. The next Mossad operation won't be so easy. The next target won't be so vulnerable. The leaked documents don't just expose the assassination, they expose the network, the safe houses in Tehran's northern suburbs, the dead drop in the bazaars. The Iranian officials on Mossad's payroll, some of whom have already been arrested, others who are still being hunted by their own people. And can you imagine the paranoia in Tehran right now? Everyone is looking at everyone else. Who spoke to the wrong person? Who took the wrong phone call? Who has a bank account that doesn't match their salary? The Iranian government is eating itself alive, trying to root out the traitors. And with every arrest, with every execution, they create new martyrs, new families with grievances, new recruits for the opposition. But here's what keeps intelligence analysts awake at night: the miscalculation, the mistake that turns a controlled assassination into an uncontrolled war. Because that's what this is, controlled. Or at least that's what Mossad thought. They calculated that Iran would rage, threaten, maybe launch some symbolic missiles, but ultimately accept the loss, just like they accepted the deaths of their nuclear scientists. just like they accepted the sabotage of their facilities, just like they've accepted decades of Israeli operations on their soil. But this time feels different. This time the Iranians are talking about existential response, about changing the rules of the game, so about making Israel understand that there are lines that cannot be crossed. What does that mean exactly? In intelligence circles, there's a concept called threshold theory. Every conflict has invisible lines. Cross them, and the nature of the war changes. Israel has been operating below Iran's threshold for years. Killing scientists, painful but not existential. Sabotaging facilities, damaging but not fatal. But killing the president, that's regime change territory. That's an attempt to destabilize the entire Iranian state. And if that's the game Israel is playing, then Iran's response won't be measured. It won't be cautious. It will be designed to show that Israel is just as vulnerable, that their leaders are just as exposed, that their cities are just as flammable. Imagine this scenario. It's 3 a.m. in Tel Aviv. The streets are quiet. Suddenly, air raid sirens. Not the usual few rockets from Gaza. These are hundreds of precision missiles coming from Lebanon, from Syria, from Yemen, from Iran itself, all coordinated, all targeting specific locations, government buildings, military bases, intelligence headquarters. Israel's Iron Dome, hailed as the ultimate defense, is overwhelmed. Missiles get through, buildings collapse, officials die. And just like that, the assassination in Tehran is avenged, tenfold, 100-fold. Is this fantasy? Ask the Houthis, who struck deep inside Israel last year. Ask Hezbollah, who have 150,000 rockets pointed south. The capability exists. The will is growing. All that's needed is the order. And what about the Americans in all this? The supposed honest broker, the superpower that claims to want peace in the Middle East. Where are they? Silent. Complicit. Or worse, involved. Because let's be real, an operation of this scale doesn't happen without Washington knowing, without at least a nod, without the assurance that when Iran responds, the United States will have Israel's back. The aircraft carriers are already moving. The fighter wings are on alert. The weapons shipments held up for months over humanitarian concerns are suddenly flowing again. It's all connected. The assassination, the preparation, the coming war. But here's what Washington doesn't understand. Or maybe they do and they don't care. This isn't 1973. This isn't even 2006. The Middle East has changed. Iran isn't alone anymore. The axis of resistance, Tehran's network of militias and proxies, is battle-hardened, tested in Syria, tested in Yemen, tested against ISIS. They know how to fight. They know how to bleed. And most importantly, they know how to wait, how to choose the moment. Israel struck in Tehran because they saw a window. A moment of Iranian weakness. But windows close, moments pass, and the blowback, the inevitable catastrophic blowback, is building like a tsunami on the horizon. I want you to think about the economic implications for a moment. Because war isn't just about missiles and martyrs. It's about markets, supply chains, your daily life. The Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's oil passes, is Iranian territory. They don't even need to close it completely. Just threaten it. Just fire a few missiles near the tankers. And watch oil prices explode. $150 a barrel, $200, maybe higher. Gas lines, inflation, recession, all because of a decision made in a secure room in Jerusalem to kill one man. One man who, let's remember, was replaceable. Iran has already named a successor. The government continues. The only thing that's changed is the level of rage, the certainty of retaliation, the march toward the apocalypse. Let's talk about those leaked documents one more time, because they reveal something even more disturbing than the assassination itself. They reveal the mindset, the cold, strategic calculation that treats human life as a chess piece. There's a phrase in the documents translated from Hebrew that refers to the operation as cutting the snake's head, not just killing a man, decapitating a movement, a philosophy, the belief that if you remove the leader, you remove the threat. But history teaches us the opposite. When you kill a leader, especially a popular one, even a controversial one, you don't end a movement. You immortalize it. You give it power beyond life. You create a martyr whose name becomes a rallying cry for generations. Think about it. In death, This president becomes larger than he ever was in life. The young Iranians who once criticized him now wear his image. The moderates who opposed his policies now demand revenge in his name. The region's Shiites, from Lebanon to Pakistan, see him as a saint struck down by the Zionist enemy. Mossad didn't just kill a man. They created a legend, a symbol, a reason for war that will outlast everyone reading this script. And for what? A temporary disruption of Iranian politics? A few months of chaos while they select a new leader? The cost-benefit analysis is so skewed, so insane, that you have to wonder if there isn't something else going on, some deeper game, some hidden objective that makes sense of this apparent madness. Maybe the objective is war itself. Maybe there are players on both sides who believe that a final, decisive conflict is inevitable. And better to have it now on their terms than later when Iran's nuclear program is complete, when their missile technology is more advanced, when their alliances are stronger. If that's the calculation, then this assassination isn't an end. It's the beginning. The first shot in a war that's been delayed for decades, a war that will reshape the Middle East, redraw borders, realign alliances, and leave millions dead in its wake. The silence from Israel is deafening. No confirmation, no denial. Just the usual, we don't comment on intelligence matters, but their actions speak louder than words. The embassies are evacuating. The citizens are being called home. The reserves are being mobilized. They're preparing for the response they know is coming. And in a strange way, you have to respect the honesty of it. At least they're not pretending. Not like the Americans who issue statements about de-escalation while sending more weapons. Not like the Europeans who call for restraint while cutting off humanitarian aid. Everyone is playing their part in this drama. Everyone knows their lines. And the audience, the global public, is supposed to sit back and watch, to choose sides based on propaganda, to cheer for their team while the world burns. But I'm not going to let you off that easily. Before this video ends, you need to make a choice. Not about who's right and who's wrong. That's too simple. Too childish. No, you need to choose whether you're going to pay attention, whether you're going to understand that what happens in Tehran doesn't stay in Tehran, that the actions of shadowy intelligence agencies affect your life, your security, your future, that when leaders choose assassination over diplomacy, when they choose war over peace, they're choosing for all of us. And we have the right, the obligation to know what's being done in our names, with our money, with our tacit approval. That's why these leaks matter. That's why this story matters. Not because it's sensational, though it is. Not because it's dramatic, though it's that too, but because it's real. It's happening right now. While you watch this video, someone in a uniform is typing coordinates into a computer. Someone else is loading a missile. Someone is making a decision that could end everything. And the only thing standing between us and that abyss is awareness, knowledge. The truth that leaks out despite the best efforts of those who would keep us in the dark. So what happens next? Let me give you 3 scenarios. 3 possible futures that branch from this moment. First, Iran retaliates massively. Israel responds in kind. The United States is drawn in, Russia backs Iran, China sees opportunity, and we have World War III in the Middle East. Millions die. Oil hits $300. The global economy collapses. In the second scenario, cooler heads prevail. The Iranians launch a symbolic strike, strong enough to satisfy honor, limited enough to avoid all-out war. Israel absorbs the blow, retaliates proportionally, and both sides step back from the brink. Diplomacy resumes. The assassination becomes a footnote, a warning, a moment when disaster was avoided. The third scenario is the most insidious. The war that isn't called a war. The long, grinding conflict of attrition, cyber attacks that shut down power grids, assassinations of lower-level officials on both sides, proxy battles across the region, Lebanon burning, Syria bleeding, Iraq fracturing, Yemen is starving. A decade of chaos that slowly, inexorably drains life from the Middle East. No decisive battles, no clear winners, just suffering. Endless, pointless suffering. If you've watched this far, you're not just a viewer, you're a witness. And witnesses have a duty to speak. So I'm asking you, no, I'm begging you, share this video, not for me, for the truth, for the chance that enough people knowing, enough people caring, might, just might, make the warmongers hesitate. The algorithms are already suppressing this story. Prove them wrong. Share this. Everywhere. Now. And before you go, I need your opinions. Your opinions. Your voices. Answer me these 3 questions in the comments below. I read every single one. I respond to as many as I can. And your answers shape future videos. So don't hold back. Be honest, be passionate, be real. Question A, if you were advising the Iranian leadership right now, what would you tell them? Retaliate hard and risk all-out war? Or absorb the blow and pursue diplomatic revenge through international courts and sanctions? There's no easy answer. I want to hear your reasoning. Question B. The leaked documents suggest multiple Iranian officials were working with Mossad. Some have been arrested, probably executed. But here's the deeper question. In a country where the government is oppressive, where freedoms are restricted, where the economy is failing, is working with a foreign power treason or survival? Is there ever justification for aiding an enemy against your own government? Question C. Israel has a long history of targeted assassinations. They've killed scientists, militants, and political leaders across the Middle East. Some call it necessary self-defense. Others call it state terrorism. But here's what I want to know. If this tactic, killing enemy leaders, actually worked, wouldn't the region be safer by now? Wouldn't Israel be more secure? Or does every assassination just create 10 new enemies? Give me your honest take. Has Israel's strategy of targeted killing made them safer or sown the seeds of their own destruction? Drop your answers below. Debate each other respectfully. The best comments get featured in my next video. And if you want more content like this, deep dives into the shadows where history is really made, subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Because when the next shoe drops, when the next leak happens, when the next crisis explodes, you want to be the first to know. Not the last. Not manipulated, the informed. This isn't entertainment, this is your world. Know it, question it, change it. I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe, stay aware, and never stop asking why.